Outsourcing tends to have a bad reputation as being low quality. Partner Hero's value-based approach raises the bar for the outsourcing industry by investing in employee empowerment and career growth, paying above-market salaries, and maintaining a focus on quality and performance. They're more than a service provider. They're also a thought partner for the startups they serve. It's simple. Brands that care about quality customer experience choose Partner Hero. They offer flexible terms and the ability to scale quickly, perfect for startups, with quality assurance baked into every program and offices around the world. So Partner Hero can provide truly global coverage. Outsourcing has long been available mainly to big businesses, but Partner Hero is challenging business as usual by bringing the benefits of outsourcing to businesses of all sizes with short, flexible contracts and fast ramp-up times. 10 years ago, when we were launching the Action Catalyst, we could have used a few extra hands to help us scale quickly, even if it was just for a short while. You can bet that with their expertise, fast onboarding, and core focus on quality, Partner Hero would have had our attention. If you're ready to bring in outside customer support help for your startup that feels like it's a part of an existing team, check out Partner Hero. Head over to partnerhero.com/Action Catalyst to book a free consultation with our solutions team. Mention you heard about Partner Hero from the Action Catalyst, and they'll even waive the setup fee. Now, on to the show.
From Nashville, Tennessee, Southwestern Family of Companies welcomes you to the Action Catalyst. Each week, we share insights and inspiration from movers and shakers in the world of business. Our goal is to help you increase your self-discipline, overcome procrastination, and help you to take action on all the things that really matter.
Navy SEALs. No matter what your political views are, no matter what country you live in, if you know anything about the Navy SEALs and the kind of training and preparation you go through, you know that beyond a shadow of a doubt, they are perhaps unequivocally some of the most emotionally and physically and mentally tough people on the planet. And today we have Mark Divine here, who is one of the elite SEALs, years of experience, also a best-selling author, and also has the unique mix of very, very substantial business experience and academia. And so we're going to talk about how to create an unbeatable mind and what are the things, the rituals, the practices, the routines, and the beliefs that Navy SEALs follow and indoctrinate themselves with, and the concepts that go on inside their culture to create these extraordinary human beings that are capable of just amazing performance. It's absolutely incredible. Mark is going to share these what he calls the big four, these 4 areas in your life, or 4 practical sort of generations that you have to go through to prepare yourself to be unbeatable. And then at the end of the show, I'm going to kind of just dissect and debrief the 5 core concepts that I took away from Mark and how I'm applying them and how we're applying them with our team at Southwestern. And it's amazing how much of this is congruent to stuff that we teach, but also very edifying. So we're going to talk about multiplying your performance through an unbeatable mind and how do Navy SEALs create that. We'll get started just after this message.
This episode is sponsored by Southwestern Coaching. Southwestern Coaching has helped over 12,000 people increase their incomes by over 25% on average. As a successful salesperson, you know the importance of increasing your sales, but sometimes you might just need a little extra push and accountability to meet your goals and grow your business. Southwestern Coaching will help you increase your income through one-on-one sales and leadership coaching tailored specifically to your needs. Together, we will elevate sales. To schedule your free one-on-one business action planning session with a Southwestern coach, go to www.southwesternconsulting.com/action catalyst.
Mark Divine has a degree in economics from Colgate University and an MBA in finance from NYU. His first career was with Coopers and Lybrand, which is now PricewaterhouseCoopers, as a CPA. But 4 years after joining, Mark left and pursued his vision to become an elite Navy SEAL officer. And what's cool, not only was he in the Navy SEALs, but he graduated as the Honorman, the number one ranked trainee of his SEAL Buds class, number 170, served 9 years active duty and 11 years as a reserve SEAL. He is the New York Times bestselling author of The Way of the SEAL and 8 Weeks to SEALFIT. He's also an accomplished martial artist with multiple black belts and is a yoga instructor and just an awesome guy. More rare known fact, in the SEALs, his nickname was Cyborg. So, Mark, welcome to the show, man.
I don't know where you learned that one. That was pretty good.
I know we're digging. We spent some time digging around there, and I have to tell you, as soon as I've known about you for a while, and the various books and the works that you're doing, but this concept of Unbeatable Mind really sunk in with me right away, and I think it's so relevant to everybody, and I just wanted to kind of try to get inside your brain a little bit about how to create one. And one of the things that you talk about is the 20X factor. Can you tell us what that's all about?
Yeah, sure. Most people have heard of Hell Week. Hell Week is the 1 week during the 9 months of SEAL, in-doc training or basic training they call BUDS and then SQT. And so there's 1 week that's kind of famous, and that's the week called Hell Week, where we train from Sunday afternoon until Friday, the following Friday, around the clock without any sleep. Actually, they give us 4 hours just to mess with us on Thursday. But so it's kind of legendary, and it really is, it's multi-purposed, but I would say the dominant purpose is to teach those that make it through it that they're capable of practically anything that they put their mind to. And the reason I use the 20X term is because as I was preparing myself for my own Hell Week, I had some unique rituals. My teammates were all sitting and messing with their gear, and we had this big tent set up outside of BUDS, and they're kind of anxiously awaiting what we call breakout, which is the start. And I had kind of wandered off over the berm, and just sat and looked at the ocean and just began my breathing and kind of meditation practice, what I now call winning in my mind before the battle. And as I was sitting there, one of the instructors came up to me and he kind of smiled. He looked at me, and I don't know what was going through his head, but he must have been thinking, okay, this guy is a little bit different and he's doing something different, and I get it. And he came to me and he goes, Mark, he goes, you got nothing to worry about. He goes, you're capable 20 times more than you think you are. Have fun, basically have fun with this one. Because he knew for some reason that I was going to make it through. And when the training started, again, the first 50 some odd hours are the hardest, because that's the new reality of this, your life circumstances setting in. Your body is all of a sudden saying, I am exhausted. I haven't slept. I'm freezing cold. I'm chafed. I'm bleeding. I just ache all over the place. But your mind says, okay, that's all fine and good, but you're not quitting. You got 3.5 more days. And so that was what was going through my mind. In the meantime, my teammates were quitting left and right. We started my class with 185 students, all, highly qualified super studs. By the time we got to Hell Week, we were probably down to 120 or something like that. And then by the end of 50 hours of Hell Week, we were down to 60. And so they were just dropping like flies. And I was just telling myself, can't quit. Just keep going, one foot in front of the other, words to that effect. And what I noticed, and I'll kind of end here, what I noticed, Rory, is that my body started to get stronger. So, after days without sleep, round the clock physical training, most people, conventional wisdom would be that you'd be breaking down and, you'd be almost catatonic. And my body started to build muscle mass, and it started to get stronger, and I started to get more alert. Now, I was still probably, if you were to give me some sort of test, I would probably have, failed any higher cognitive functions or skills, but I was able to stay focused on the tasks that they were giving to me, and to stay focused on my team, and to drive through. And I was getting stronger and feeling stronger. So that was really profound to me, because I realized, afterwards that instructor was right. I truly was capable 20 times more than I thought, and Hell Week proved it to me. And so that's become kind of a central tenet of my my teaching today is that, you are capable of 20 times more and then 20 times again, but you got to prove it to yourself in order to believe it at a really gut heart level. It's not a cognitive thing. You can't just think yourself that you're capable of that much more, because that's not enough. You've got to know it deeply.
So, give us an example for some people that are not that familiar with Hell Week. So you're awake the whole time except for a few hours on that Thursday. What are some of the other things that you're doing? Well, if you can even remember.
It was a few years ago, right? But it's one of those things that you don't forget much. The evolutions, they call every event an evolution. The evolutions range from anywhere from, a couple hours to like 6 or 8 hours long. And they had us doing, SEAL-like stuff, but not super complicated. Like, we weren't jumping out of helicopters with live ammunition and bursting down doors, because this wasn't the purpose of the training. Training was to attrite those people who weren't mentally tough or emotionally resilient and couldn't be good teammates, and to prove those of us who were mentally tough, emotionally resilient, and good teammates that we were capable of freaking anything. So the types of things we were doing, like one evolution was to take our 350-pound logs and to take them on like a 10-mile journey, right? Carrying them over our heads and on our shoulders without putting them down. And so that was interesting challenge, to say the least, in the soft sand. Another was to paddle our little rubber boats. They're called IBS. I'm not even sure what that acronym was, but we called it itty bitty ship.
Okay.
Little rubber boats, and there were 7 of us, and we had to paddle these itty bitty ships around Coronado Island in San Diego at night. And that was, I think, on like Wednesday night or something of Hell Week, and everybody was hallucinating, including myself. It's like 2 a.m, and we're just stroke, and the guy in front of me, literally, his paddle slipped out of his hand and started floating past me, and I grabbed it, and his arms kept moving. He kept stroking the paddle. So I took the paddle, I just smacked him over the head with it, and I said, "Hey, dummy, here's your paddle." He's like, "Holy cow. I didn't even know I lost that thing." And
I remember Joe Coons was telling us a story about this. He was hallucinating, and they looked over in one of the other boats. They saw Jesus. Yeah. And the guy's like, "They got Jesus in their boat." And nobody thought anything weird about it. They weren't like, they didn't go, "Oh, that's it, right?" What they all thought was, "Well, Jesus needs to be in our boat."
Yeah, how come
they're like, yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah. A little bit, longer, a little bit further along, I saw this massive wave well up in front of me, and I'm like, water. That's what we used to say, when we go through Surf Passage. So, and a huge wave came up. And so I ducked down, and everyone looks at me like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Duck, water." And then I look up, and there's nothing there. I'm like, "What the heck?" This is strange, So your mind, our mind, the body first goes, and then the mind goes. And that's kind of the whole point here, is that the mind starts to play tricks on you. And it's your cognitive mind, which is, the reality is fraying. And the structures that you used to hang on to as real are starting to shift and to fray. And so you can't rely on that anymore. And so that was a great lesson for me too. I was like, I can't rely on the way I used to perceive my mind working, because it's not working that way for me under stress. It's not working right under stress. And
so what do you do? Like, how do you, so if you go, okay, that your body is capable of 20 times more, how do you access that, right? Like, you can say, okay, I get that, but how do you really get yourself to execute on that?
Yeah. That's the Holy Grail. So in the SEALs, it's just through these intense experiences that you crack open your body mind system and reorganize it in ways that I don't even think anyone really understands. I don't even think the SEALs understand it. They just know it works. That's why they'll never give up Hell Week. They've had so many, kind of peacetime attempts to get rid of the Hell Week program because they think it's kind of inhumane, and, they think it may be too hard. And, there have been people who've died in the training and stuff, but very rare, actually. And they're from natural causes, like, someone dies of a heart attack, or they have an accident and they drown, but no one's died from exhaustion that I'm aware of in Hell Week.
Huh. That's interesting by itself, that they haven't just died from flat exhaustion.
You think they would, but the point is, by the time you get to Hell Week, the human body is capable of handling that, if you prepared for it. So anyways, what I'm saying is the SEALs the training is just brilliant, and it's evolved over, 60 years to really prepare SEALs for the most rigorous challenges, missions, and environments in the world, and to believe that anything's possible, to believe that they can accomplish any mission. And so, you look at the success rate of the SEALs, and it kind of bears it out that that's a pretty effective training method. So they don't want to mess with it. But I don't think they really understand, beyond kind of like the combat effectiveness and some of the work that David Grossman has done with his, understanding about how to condition a warrior for the rigors of combat. I think that's all like philosophy and research, and it's really interesting. But I don't think they understand what's happening at a emotional, even quasi-spiritual level or metaphysical level. And also with regard to the brain and the mind and the nervous system, and how all those things are reorganizing, through neuroplasticity and also epigenetics, so that SEALs are kind of like turning on and off different genes. And I would say, if there was a warrior gene, then the SEALs have learned how to turn that on in a big way, right? To where, you get activities like you saw with Mark Lee and Michael Mansour, where they're like, okay, you know what? I'm willing to lay my life down for my teammate. You don't see that very often in modern world. That is a very much of a warrior gene that's been turned on, where you put yourself, your teammates so far above yourself. And that's one of the reasons that the training is so effective, because nothing gets done alone as a SEAL. That's what we call the SEAL teams. And when you have an individual, let's say take Mark Divine, who knows that he's capable of 20 times more, and then you put him with a team of 14 others in a platoon, or maybe, 35 others in a troop, or 40 others in a troop, and every one of those individuals knows that they're capable of 20 times more, and they're all watching each other's back and care about each other and know that each other is absolutely essential to getting the mission done, then you get an effect that's not like 20 times, but like 20 times 20 times 20 times 20 times, you know what I mean? Just multiply it by a number of people. It's an enormous geometric effect in terms of power projection and can-do attitude.
So take me to preparing yourself, right? Because I think, like most of us are probably never going to be in this situation. But how do you sort of mentally prepare yourself before, battle or war, or, because I think at some level, a lot of people listening have some type of competition or game time, or it's like, making a sales call or just having a difficult conversation with your spouse or your kid or whatever. So like going back to that time, like, what do you do when it's real, like right before it's real?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Because you're right, not everyone is going to go through SEAL training. Very, very, very few do. And nor would you want to, frankly, because it sucks.
Yeah, it doesn't sound appealing to me. I'll say
right.
that.
Exactly. So I've kind of spent the balance of my, the last 15 years trying to figure out, well, how do you train? Not that same experience, even though, through my SEALFIT program, we have recreated the Hell Week experience, and it has an incredible effect, and civilians can go through it. But through my Unbeatable Mind training, I looked at it and said, okay, so what's happening? And I tried to understand what is happening at a mind and a body and a spirit and nervous system level. And can I kind of parse out those different elements and train them? And so I began doing that with SEAL candidates back in 2007, 2008, because I started training SEAL candidates. I wanted to help them succeed the way I did in SEAL training, and to have a better career and be more focused and make better decisions in battle and to avoid PTSD and all those things. And so I began to draw more, or kind of like I would say equal parts from my Navy SEAL days with my yoga and martial arts training, because I realized that the Eastern practices had a lot of tools, and they were a developmental path for accessing greater power, almost 20x power, and developing internal potential, and integrating and being able to use your mind in a unique way, or a better way. And this is lacking in the West. There really isn't any developmental models that I'm aware of that didn't come from either the martial arts or yoga. There was some understanding of it philosophically through integral theory and transpersonal psychology and stuff like that, but there weren't any practices or paths, if you know what I mean, in the traditional sense. And you're a martial artist, so I know you, and a lot of people know what I'm talking about when I say developmental path. And so I looked at my own martial arts training and my own, I was deep into yoga and I've been to multiple teacher trainings and was even developing our own yoga to teach to SEALs, which I, had to really simplify and chunk it out into drills and discard any woo-woo, you know what I mean? I took the foo out of the kung fu and took the woo-woo out of the yoga to teach these things. And so I came up with these skills. I call them, they line sort of with what the SEALs call the big four, but there's more than four, but the biggest and most powerful ones are, first is to develop control over your breath and to use your breath as a center post of your training, right? Because the breath is what will lead you to being in physiological control of your body. And so the studies have now verified the power of breath control for stress management, stress release, and for triggering the parasympathetic nervous system to bleed off stress. So it's really, really healthy for you and healthy for your nervous system. But beyond that, the breath is a way to stay focused, because after all, the brain is a organ of the body, and when your body is calmer, your brain is calmer. I mean, it's experienced subjectively as literally a lower brain, cycle rate, and you're kind of an alpha beta when you're really calm, and it's healthier, right? And you're detoxing when you breathe deeply and cyclically, and you don't have the choppy patterns associated with anxious emotional states. So the breath control is that first skill that I started teaching the SEAL candidates, and that alone, and I call the practice box breathing, that alone had a profound impact on their ability to focus and remain clear in the heat of battle and that type of thing. And then I said, okay, so once I'm physiologically and physically in control, and I'm clear-headed and able to focus, then it's about creating the conditions in my mind so that I can stay focused on the right thing at the right time, stay focused on my teammates, and stay focused on a positive outcome. Whereas, the common individual will seize upon something that's going wrong, and that could be like, I'm suffering because this sucks, or I'm in pain, or my back hurts, or I can't do this because it's too hard. I can't lift this 300-pound log up anymore. There's always something, whether it's physical or mental or something really practical, some challenge or crisis in your life. There's always something, right? Because that's the human condition. Every day of your life, there's going to be something that doesn't go well or right. There's going to be something that's negative. There's going to be some discomfort. And most people will seize upon that and focus on that. And then, of course, that which you focus on tends to grow, or it attracts energy to it. And so I learned and I taught these SEALs that, we accept and be non-attached to what happens to us, and we take control in a positive sense of what's happening in our mind, in both our rational mind as well as our emotional mind. And so we maintain a really positive, energetic attitude and mindset. I call this positivity. It's kind of an unfortunate term that I chose, because I think the whole positivity movement is now well known, and it can be easily mistaken for kind of
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you about that. So okay, so let's say you're there, right? You're carrying a 350-pound log. You're 9 miles into this journey when you've had no sleep. Obviously, there's some part of your brain going, this sucks, I hate this, I'm tired. What are you, so you're, what are you thinking about?
The trained mind, as soon as that resistance is experienced, will begin to dialogue in a way that generates power instead of weakness. And so when that log starts to rub the shoulder or starts to get hard, instead of saying, holy cow, I don't think I can do this, or man, this thing's heavy, or how long do we have to do this? Another 3 hours. You basically shift that to some sort of powerful statement that you also associate with an energetic and emotional state. So one of the classic ones that I have is, this is an easy day. I got this piece of cake. This is an easy day. I got this piece of cake. I'm feeling good and I'm looking good. I ought to be in Hollywood. And so then your internal dialogue, this takes over and starts to drown out any of that other dialoguing. And then you begin to, this ties into the third skill. The third skill is imaging. So that includes visualization, image projection in terms of the future, what, desired outcomes, because if you can see the win in your mind, then you can achieve the win if you believe it and act forcefully on it, right? And that comes straight from Sun Tzu. The victorious warrior wins in his mind first and then enters the battle. And so the combination of the second skill, which is maintaining and developing and maintaining a positive direction and a positive routine and a positive emotional pattern associated with your thought. So this is, requires like training the brain, training the mind to act this way all the time, especially when the challenges appear. This then connects to your ability to see yourself succeeding in those challenges, see yourself dominating in those challenging environments, being able to maintain a clear picture of the win in spite of the dark night of the soul moments that might come over you or the team. And, you can connect back to that image of the win and go, oh yeah, that's it. That's why I'm here.
And when you say this, you're talking about almost like an eyes closed. I am literally trying to create a movie in my head of what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, in the practice of visualization, that's the most effective way. But in the application, it's there whether your eyes are open or not. Right. And so this goes, there's so many subtle skills that are involved. How we use our eyes is important. So if if I need to lift the log up and put it on my other shoulder, then I shift my mind and my gaze into a very practical, this is my one task right here, right now. I look at the log, I coordinate the movements with my team. We breathe together and hoist it up on the command and lower it over. And that's the only thing I'm doing and thinking of in that moment. Okay. But then let's say right when that's done and we're like, oh, I've got a little relief. It's on the other shoulder now. And we're going to take another 100 paces or so. Then I soften my gaze, and my gaze, my eyes literally go from, pupils dilated. I'm focused on a task and I'm outwardly focused to where my eyes go really soft. And almost like they go wide, and I'm using my peripheral vision. And in that state, your mind will soften, and it's almost like, just letting go and turning inward. And in that inward, even though my eyes are open, I have access to my imagery, and I can go back and check in with it, or the imagery's there for me. Does that make sense? So again, this is the tools are, how do we use our mind effectively? Our minds are so much more powerful when we learn how to use them, right? And so we've been trained here in the West to really dominantly be focused on our cognition, our rational mind, our thinking, right? And then if you're creative, they say, oh yeah, you're creative, so you're using that right brain and you have creative powers. The reality is we all have the capacity to think better and to avoid our cognitive bias. So that's a skill that we have to train for. But we also have the capacity to release that, to literally put that area of our mind, that active area of our mind, to rest, like to turn the dial down significantly so that you can open up to what I call direct perception, perceiving things just the way they are right now without having to judge or analyze or anything. And a massive amount of information flows in with that. When you're thinking,
is that the fourth part, or that's still part of this imaging?
No, it's still part of this second and third skill, like learning how to use the mind. The fourth skill, by the way, is task orientation. Learning.
Okay, so hold on. So before you do that, so sorry.
Finish what I was saying. Right?
Yeah, no, well, I just, this is because here's what people do, right? So we coach people for a living. Like, this is what we do, is we're coaching salespeople, and they need to make a call and they're terrified, and they have the opposite, right? In their mind, a war zone plays out where the person screams at them and yells at them and they lose the battle. And then they never they lose the battle before it begins, and so they never even enter into battle. Correct. But when you talk about this positive part, they go, well, isn't that stupid? Isn't that cheesy? But I mean, it's powerful to hear you, like somebody, like it's powerful to hear.
Here's the thing. You walk up to the door. Let me try to relate this to, I've never done door-to-door sales, but I did do a sales job for a year where we had to make 100 calls a day. So it's not that was hard. Yeah. Get it. You walk up to the door and the first thing you're doing is you're breathing deep in a deep cyclical pattern. And you've trained yourself to do this through our box breathing. Deep cycle, 4 count in, 4 count out, or 4 count in, hold briefly to a count of 2, and 4 count out. That's the first skill. While you're doing that breathing, you're saying to yourself, easy day, I got this, I'm going to nail this one. This is a piece of cake. This guy's going to love me, whatever. Find your own dialogue. It's got to be your words and it's got to be meaningful. And then when you train this every day, the emotions line up. So you feel energetically like a winner, like you're going to get this sale. Now, in a practical sense, you're not going to get them all, but you're going to get this one, right? Then connected to that, again, because you practice this every day, is an image of you closing this deal, of you as your best self, confident, poised, positively energized, adding value to whoever's going to open that door, so that this situation is a win-win. And it is beneficial to all involved that you show up on this doorstep, knock on or ring the doorbell, and that whoever answers, their life is enriched with your presence. You have that image, right? You believe it. And then your task, the fourth skill is, what's my task? My task is to open that door, smile, and add value to this person, right? And in the process of adding value, to educate them about the books that I'm selling or whatever it is that I'm selling. When they offer an objective, your next task is to, with a positive and very graceful and humble way to overcome that objective, right? Not to be a slippery salesperson, not to, to be a human being, to be authentic. Now, what's happening on the other side is because, essentially we're talking about energy transfer here. If you show up at that door full of fear, saying, I'm not sure I'm going to get this, or I'll never get this, or gosh, I've only closed one today and I need, whatever it is in your head and in your body, they're going to feel. It's transferred. And they're going to project that back. They're going to project that fear back. They're going to project that no back to you, and you're toast, right? You've lost before you even had an opportunity. But if you show up doing everything that I just explained because you've trained to do it, right? It's not a cognitive thing. It's this is a very visceral process. Then, what you're going to get on the other side is an energetic synchronization, and you're 10 times more likely to close the deal, right?
But this is, it's like, this is, when I think Navy SEAL, I think, tough as nails. I think physical. I think, I think about the physical. But everything you're describing here, this is all mental.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the mental, essentially the human being has the body, the mind, and the spirit. If all you focus on is the body, you're going to be a one-dimensional being. The body follows the mind. We learned that in the SEAL training as a tenet of what I teach at SEALFIT. The body follows the mind. And so you could be physically fit and still fail at a sporting event if your mind is not conditioned properly. You could be the most talented athlete, and we see this over and over again, and still fail. You might win one or two times, but you're going to fail if your mind isn't conditioned right. So really the mind is the preeminent. Everything flows from the mind. And then behind the mind is the spirit, and it's beyond the scope of this conversation, but I could almost make that same statement that once you connect with the spirit, with your spirit, then everything flows from that. And the mind becomes even more refined and finely tuned with universal principles. And that's when your ultimate power comes out. So you're truly at your most complete, fullest self when body, mind, and spirit are all aligned and working together,
I mean, Mark, this is so cool. And I'm just looking here at the clock. This is the longest interview that we've had. And I mean, we've never let it go this long. And I'm like, I have 1,000 questions that I need to ask you. And I'm like, I mean, I've literally got like 10 here about the offensive mind, about all these things that I sent you. That
do this again, because people are thinking, well, how does this work for SEALs? And I'm thinking it's the same. I mean, SEALs who are aligned like that, and everyone's operating that way, they literally are shaping their enemy's minds. SEALs shape their enemy's mind with their violence of action and offensive mindset, because everyone is thinking, we got this. We are running toward the sound of gunfire. We're going to dominate this battle. We're going to, take it to the enemy, whatever. Everyone's thinking that way. And like I said, at a very subtle level, that breeds fear in the enemy, and the way we act and the way we think and the way we show up on the battlefield breeds fear in the enemy. Now, they may not even know it, but it happens, right? And that's why their actions and reactions are going to be weaker than ours. In Vietnam, the Vietnamese NVA used to call the SEALs devils with green faces, because just the way they get, the operators back then would show up in the middle of the jungle, out of nowhere, and their faces were painted because they were using camouflage, and they learned how to stalk and to be completely silent as they moved through the jungle. And they would literally just show up and wreak havoc on the enemy and then disappear. And that's what I mean. Like that's an energetic, obviously there's practical skills, but it's also a mindset that the SEALs had that, hey, we're going to be devils with green faces, and we're going to scare the out of the enemy. And they won practically every altercation. We had 36 SEALs who were, unfortunately killed in Vietnam, most of them from accidents, like helicopter accidents and boating accidents. Isn't that interesting?
That is crazy. So, yes, so we do need to do this again. In the interim, Mark, where should people go to connect with you if they want to learn about SEALFIT? I know you got the Unbeatable Mind book and course, and, where do you want people to find you?
Well, I think you said that if someone's interested in these principles, then there's 2 books that I have out that kind of cover down on them. One is probably the first one to read is Unbeatable Mind, where I introduce these principles, and then the second is called The Way of the SEAL. Both are great books for learning these principles. And then if you want to find me on the web, SEALFIT, all one word, SEALFIT.com, has a ton of content, a ton of free resources, and we've got some great video training, and that's where all our events, our sheepdog type training is. Our 50-hour Hell Week simulation called Kokoro Camp. We have a 12-hour one called 20X. We have a new 24-hour Crucible called the 20XL. Stuff like that.
Well, and last little thing, man, if somebody's out there listening right now and they're realizing, they're going, whoa, I am so far from this unbeatable mind. Like, I am so not mentally tough. Like, I'm losing every battle in my head before it even begins. And, maybe for the first time, they're having that epiphany. Like, I thought all of this mental stuff was hooey-fooey. And now, here you have one of the toughest beings on the planet talking about this. Other than connecting with you, of course, and the books and stuff, what's like one practice you would suggest? You go, you need to start doing this immediately.
Yeah, it's the first skill I alluded to earlier, box breathing. And if this is the only thing that someone gets out of this podcast of yours, and it's time well spent. And so that is simply to begin a daily practice of breathing, where you breathe through your nose, your nostrils, with your mouth closed, and ideally your eyes closed, and just sit in a chair, straight spine, and you're going to inhale to a count of 4 or 5, hold your breath for a count of 5, exhale for a count of 5, hold your breath for a count of 5. So you're breathing in a box or a square pattern. And to do this, a minimum of 5 minutes, but ideally for 20 minutes a day. Best time is probably first thing in the morning when you wake up. This is not meditation, but although it's the precursor to meditation, because it's got the physiological benefits of resetting your nervous system, bleeding off stress, and clarifying your mind. And so literally you're going to detox your mind and get your mind really focused. And then the secondary benefit is it's a concentration practice. And a lot of people fail with meditation because the preparatory practice for meditation is concentration. And so we need to learn how to concentrate on this one thing. And that box breathing pattern is the one thing. And so this practice in itself, I've got, surgeons who use it for surgery, during their surgery. And of course, Navy SEALs practice this, variations of this. And all sorts of people have found, great benefit from it. So I would start there.
I love it. Mark Divine, ladies and gentlemen, and check him out, follow him. And Mark, man, first of all, thank you for your service and just for what you do, and also for your model and example. And all the SEALs, the more that we learn about the SEAL culture, it's just like, it's the thing that's even more impressive to me is these elite human beings who then lay it all down 100% for everybody other than themselves. And I think that is such an inspiring vision to sort of pursue and live up to. So we appreciate you, man.
Oh yeah. Thank you for saying that. Thanks for having me on as well.
Yeah. So if you ever thought that anything related to positive mental attitude or positive self-talk or motivation or any of that stuff was hooey-fooey, hopefully you just completely had your mind changed. That was incredible to me to hear about how perhaps the most extreme physical athletes, performers in the world, Navy SEALs, are all about focusing the conditioning of the mind. And now here you've got one of the number one in BUDS training. And, there's only been a very handful of, how many of those have there been? Probably maybe a few hundred or something. One of the top performers in the world talking about this process of creating an unbeatable mind, and that it's really the mind part. I think that's just huge. And so if you enjoyed that, I want to encourage you to tweet, say hello to Mark Divine. His Twitter address is @MarkDivine, DivineE. And, you can ask him questions. And if you copy me in it, I'll try to help reinforce it in case you have a question you want to get answered, or just, tell him hello and thank him for his service and let him know that you heard him here on the podcast. Really helps a lot. And of course, my handle is Rory_Vaden. But I just wanted to, I guess, as a student, share for you, just like always, this is what I took away from that. And this is not so much anything that I want to add to it or forward to it. These were more of, I went back and listened to this a couple times because it was, truthfully, I was listening to this and went back and listened to it because I was like, this is something that I think will help me get to the next level. It's the mental conditioning. And, at some point, that's all it comes down to, right? Is this mental preparation and creating the unbeatable mind, as Mark calls it. And it speaks to me just powerfully because I have so much respect for Navy SEALs and for anybody who serves our country, or really anybody who serves anybody that is bigger than themselves. And so here are my 5 big takeaways, just boiling it down to make it actionable. First of all is this concept of 20x. 20x. And Mark enforced this. I've heard other Navy SEALs talk about this, that this is one of their core concepts, that the body can take damn near anything. It is your mind that needs conditioning. And this is a similar conversation that we have with coaching clients, right? People say, well, I've been in coaching for 20 years and why do I need a coach? I know everything about this industry. Well, number one, no, you don't. There's always more to learn. And you hear, people like Mark talking about how they're always learning. And number two, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's about getting yourself to the next level, to the next mental level. And that requires training. It requires development. It requires coaching. There's a level of growth that sort of takes place, and preparing our minds is perhaps the most valuable business activity that we can do, because as we build our minds, as we educate our minds, and we inform our minds, and we strengthen our minds, and we become tougher, we become capable of doing anything. And I think a lot of us think it's the body that would give out first, but it's not really. The body is strong, relatively speaking, but the mind wants to be safe. The mind wants to be comfortable. The mind wants to keep us, wants to pursue convenience and conserve energy. And so it's our mind that is always sort of working against us. And I think that's just huge, is realizing that your body, can take 20x what you think it can. And so physically, you're much stronger than you think. Physically, there's more energy inside of you than you can even fathom. And if these guys can be running 10 miles on a beach with a 350-pound log after they haven't had sleep for 4 days, it really presses the limits of what is possible. So that was huge, right? Just the power of the body. And one of the things I wanted to highlight on that was where he said the purpose, and this was subtle, but I heard it like the third time I went back and listened to the episode. He said, the purpose of the training is not to prepare you physically. The purpose of the training isn't to teach you skills. The purpose of Hell Week, the entire sole purpose, is to teach you to believe that anything is possible. The purpose of Hell Week is to teach you to believe that anything is possible. That is so powerful. It is such a salient point, and just understanding that the power of belief and coming from pushing yourself to the limits and growing and going to the next level is just huge. The second thing that I really loved was this concept of the warrior gene. And he was talking about, if the Navy SEALs ever learn, if there is such a thing as activating the warrior gene, the Navy SEALs have figured out how to turn it on. But the part that was really powerful for me, and I didn't pick this up the first time I listened, was when he said, we've figured out how to turn on the warrior gene. So the first couple of times I heard that, I was like, yeah, of course, you got to learn how to be tough, right? Turn on the warrior gene, like prepare yourself for battle. But when I went back and listened to it again and again, what he said was the warrior gene was not about preparing yourself for battle. The warrior gene was learning to put your teammates above yourself. So when I first heard the concept, it struck me as sort of a self-preservation concept, or a self-empowerment concept, or a self-development concept, is like, oh, this is something to develop myself, my own strength. But what he actually says after it, if you listen closely, is he said, that is about learning to put your teammates so far above yourself. Nothing gets done alone. As a SEAL, everything gets done as a team. And I think this is such a cool message, because everywhere you look today, it's like entrepreneurship is the hip, cool, trendy thing. And look, I love entrepreneurship. I believe in it. I'm a fan of it, a practitioner of it. A lot of my friends are. There's certainly nothing wrong with it. I think it's a good thing. But I think there's not enough celebration of the power of teamwork. And hearing them talk about the warrior gene is a servant gene. It is a selfless gene. It's embracing that idea, this concept is an old African proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with a team. And when we think about being a warrior, typically we think about being a passionate, strong individual. But here, what Mark is saying is that being a warrior is about being a team player. It's about knowing that every person on the team matters. Every single person on that team is competent. Every single person on that team is capable. And that together as a team, you will do more than you will do by yourself. And when you lay it down for the team, when you look out for the team, when you coalesce as a team, that is where the magic really happens, which is number 3 that I want to talk about, which is that teamwork is a multiplier. Teamwork is a multiplier. And depending on how long you've followed this podcast, we talk one of the concepts of one of our more recent books here was about how to multiply time. I think the little spiel you heard up front is today we're talking about a free webinar on how to multiply time. We are thinking about multiplication and exponential growth, and that's just a part of what we do at Southwestern Consulting. Is we're helping individuals create exponential growth through one-on-one coaching. We're helping organizations create exponential growth through keynotes and consulting, and through our various training and thing. And so multiplying is something that has our attention, and multiplying time is this concept that we've been advancing. Well, he was talking about teamwork being a multiplier, that if you have a bunch of people who understand the power of 20x, and it's not just 20 times 20, it's 20 times 20 times 20 times 20, and you have these elite performers who are all bought in, who all understand that, and who are committed to the team, that is where you outperform your opponents. That is where you rise to levels of success that you can't even imagine. That is where the magic takes place. Teamwork is the great multiplier. And you don't see that on social media. You see, quit your day job and work on start your own thing, or have a side hustle, or do this or that. And again, I'm not against those things. Certainly, it's all, depends on each person's situation, what their strengths are. But what I don't see people talking about, which he is clearly saying is like the definitive competitive advantage of Navy SEALs, is that it's about the team. It's not about advancing the individual. It's not about celebrating individual performance. It's about the unit. And I think if more of our companies operated in that sense, where it wasn't about the individual, it was about the unit, I think we would all get much, much further. The fourth thing that he brought up, and he mentioned this kind of consistently all throughout, was the concept of a trained mind. A trained mind. It's this idea that your brain, your mind, your attitude, your outlook, your perspective, however you want to call it, whatever term you want to use, has to be trained. It has to be conditioned, almost as if to say that the mind left to its own accord is somewhat weak. And honestly, I think that's true. Again, it's not because we're weak, it's because our mind is designed to keep us safe, to keep us comfortable, to keep us secure, to conserve energy. But that's not what creates ultra performance. Ultra performance is about taking risk. It's about embracing challenges. It's about pushing ourselves to the limits. And so you have to shape your mind. You have to condition your mind. And so the question is, like, what are you doing to condition your mind? What are you doing? And I know I'm somewhat preaching to the choir here. I would say, by virtue of listening to this podcast, you're doing something, which is great. I mean, that's a huge, huge step. And I love the affirmation. This is something that I'm taking away from Mark. The affirmation of it's easy day, and just, I think that's so powerful. Just easy day. I remember when we used to go door to door, we used to say, everybody's getting them, or let go, let God, let go, let God, let go, let God. I would say that out loud all day between sales calls, and or the answers behind the next door, And so I've had those in my mind for years, as many of the people on our team have, because we come from that Southwestern heritage that just ingrains positive self-talk into us from the time that we're young. And but I love easy day. I love that. That's a great one. Just easy day. You got this. I think that's cool, and that's a powerful thing. But what you're doing there is you're training your mind, and you're focusing your mind on the positive, so that you disallow your mind from focusing on the negative. You have to have a trained mind. And then the fifth thing, and this is a short one, but this was so powerful, was he said, it's about the alignment of body, mind, and spirit. Ultra performance is about the alignment of body, mind, and spirit. I love that, because you'll hear people say, oh, it's ultra performance is about the body, right? Like, that's what I think about Navy SEALs or professional athletes. It's like, oh yeah, you got to have this incredible body. Or if you hear, business people, they'll say, oh, well, it's all about your mind, right? Like, knowledge is power, and you have to learn, and you have to gather new information in order to really, have a chance to grow your business. And then you have spiritual leaders out there, or maybe people like your pastor, or maybe a yoga instructor, or somebody who talks about sort of mindfulness or consciousness that you come across, and it's like, oh, well, you have to get your, it's all about this sort of connection with the metaphysical, with God, with the spirit, and people typically tend to advance, whatever is the one that they're teaching. But I heard, what Mark was talking about very clearly, which is also something that we talk a lot about at Southwestern, is the alignment of body, mind, and spirit. In our case, I think we focus more on mind and spirit. But we talk internally, so many of our top producers internally at Southwestern Consulting are people who are in great physical shape. We had Ron Alford on the show last week or maybe a couple weeks ago. And, he's a guy that runs ultra marathons. We have a couple ultra marathon runners on our team. We have several people who are in incredible shape. We have a lot of people on our team, like that have these strict workout regimens. We have people on our team that don't drink alcohol, because they understand this connectivity between the three. And I thought it was really powerful when Mark said, you'll never reach the height of your potential until you maximize the potential in each of the three areas. And then having all three of them work together, that is when you really access your power. That is when you really access your potential. That is when you really find out what is possible. So your action item for the week, what I would just have you think about is, obviously we've pointed to some other resources here that you can always go look and listen if you're interested in the next step and reading. But my question for you is, which of those three, body, mind, or spirit, which, if any, or all of those three, are you not reaching your potential? And identify, where do you have the biggest opportunity for growth, and focus in on it, because that is how you're going to create this unbeatable mind. Well, that about wraps up the Action Catalyst podcast for this week. If you haven't yet, please log in to whatever your favorite medium is to listen to the show, and both rate this podcast and leave a comment, as that helps new prospective listeners determine if the show's really a good fit for them.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and screenshot this episode to share with your friends on social media. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst, and subscribe to our video podcast on YouTube. Thanks for listening.